You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks and Zach Bechtold. We hope you enjoy this week's show, and you can find out more about us by going online at beardedtheologians.com, where you can pick up a few t-shirts, listen to a few old episodes, and find ways that you can connect with us. Thank you for listening. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
I lagged there for just a second.
You did.
Brain lag. Advent brain lag at that. Brain lag. So we're continuing our series looking at from generation to generation. And our second week's theme was peace, but also looking at the conversation where God meets us in our fear. Zach, as you preached on this last week, what are some things that you shared, or what are some things you left on the sermon room floor that you want to share now, or is things that you've thought of since you preached on this?
No, certainly. I don't know about you, but the text that I used was the Luke 1, 26 through 38 text of the angel visiting Mary and foretelling, hey, this is what's going to happen. And it's a text that I use really almost every year just because of the conversation that happens and the realness and rawness that Luke brings to the moment of Mary's here in this place. She's a young woman. This angel appears to her and says, "You're going to not only give birth, but you're going to give birth to the Son of God." And I think what's beautiful each and every year, but especially in our generation to generation, is the encouragement from the angel of "Do not be afraid." Angel reads that sees the fear well up in Mary's eyes, right? Like this is a really overwhelming thing, and the encouragement is "Do not be afraid." Zechariah receives the same encouragement, and when the angel appears to him and says, "You and Elizabeth are beyond childbearing years, but here you go. Now's the time." And it's the same encouragement. Do not be afraid. And so I thought that was it's a beautiful reading every year, and it's a beautiful one to take on this year, as there's a lot going on in the world around us all the time. But definitely in a time like Christmas. December's not a slow time for anybody, inside or outside of the church, right? There's a lot to be afraid of as the year closes out and we start a new one. And so I don't know. I leaned on that encouragement of do not be afraid. That God is with us and we are not alone. And talked a lot about literally looking around the room. Who's sitting beside us? Who's in our neighborhoods? Who's in our homes? Who's at work with us? Who's our community that surrounds us? And remembering that we aren't alone in this. And we aren't alone in this life. And when things get hard, when things are easy and we want to celebrate, we don't do any of that alone. And trying to recognize when when that fear wells up in our hearts and our eyes also, or our neighbors' hearts and eyes, that we're able to recognize that and offer the same encouragement of do not be afraid. It's all right. God's walking this life with us, and we walk this life with each other, and we don't do it alone. So that's kind of where I took it. I don't know that anything hit the office floor this week. It was one of those that I got to put in and say the things I wanted to say and use the things I wanted to use. And as Advent goes, not a lot of time to reflect upon it. So what about you?
Oh, I have a whole 2 pages that got left on the floor because some pastor forgot that it was Communion Sunday.
Oh, yeah, gotta do it.
And he picked all the hymns that have all the verses that you have to sing because it's the season. But I said one thing that I thought that to me, I feel like resonates with what I was trying to come across and ties into a little bit of what you were saying as well. I said that Mary isn't fearless, she's faithful.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of pivoted all that around the idea of Mary's faithfulness is apparent in that last verse in verse 38 when she literally says, "All right, I'm the Lord's servant. Let's do this."
Right.
Uh, I also like I also prefaced it with like, could you imagine if you were just sitting there hanging out and all of a sudden an angel appeared to you? You would be afraid, like that, or you'd be worrying about what you ate, or you having a stroke, or something along those lines.
Right.
Like
Right.
you would be questioning what was happening here, and there is a sense of fear,
Yeah.
and I really find the angel's words here, "Do not be afraid," or "Don't be afraid," or however your translation that you reads it. I think it's one of those like, "Hey, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
listen." But also, like, I don't know about you, but anytime I hear that, or anytime I read that in scripture, I always have to say, "Hey, understand that when you see in the Bible, do not be afraid, there's always going to be a charge or a call afterwards. There's going to be an ask
Right.
afterwards." And so here is the ask. You're going to bore a son. Like, good luck. He's going to do all these great things. So she knew what was happening or what was going to
Hmm.
come. And even the angel was like, "Hey, like I do great thing. Like we do. God does great things. Look at yours. Your relative Elizabeth. She's conceived a son. Remember, she wasn't supposed to have. She was barren.
Hmm.
Now she's going to have a son. And like verse 37 for me is what I call a tattoo verse. This would be one if I had tattoos. This would be definitely one of those. Nothing is impossible for God.
Hmm.
And I love this story. I feel like, and to talk about it in the midst of peace, how do you find peace when you're in the midst of chaos? And to me, that's where God does God's great creative work, is in the midst of chaos.
Right. And that's what I love one about this series and how it's shaping up with we started last week and there's room for every story. And then leading into this week and asking that same question, right? When we find ourselves in what is seemingly impossible situations, right? When we find ourselves hearing do not be afraid. You're right. There's always a call to action that follows, but there's also always, and here's who surrounds you. Here's who understands. Here's who walks with you in this. And that's what this story is wrapped in. Elizabeth's there, right? Elizabeth's already 6 months pregnant, has already been through this in a significant way. Mary, that's your go-to. Here's who understands. And Mary's clear on that and goes and sees Elizabeth and goes and spends time with the only person on the planet who could possibly understand what's going on in her life and hear her and walk with her. And I love that. In the same regard of where do I find peace? Where do we find peace in the midst of chaos? Is the people who have already been there, the people who have come out on the other end of it, the people who have that sense of peace in the midst of chaos because they know it's going to be okay. Is it going to be hard? Absolutely. Is it going to be um, just heavy and all of the things? Will it be easy? No. But to know that there are people, we have Elizabeths out there, right, in our lives who have been there, who have walked through it, who have come out on the other end and can tell their story, can share their experience about where God showed up for them, I think is what brings peace for me in that same way of I know I don't have to go through this alone. I know that one, God's with me, and there's people in my life who have been there.
Well, don't you find that not only tying into this theme from generation to generation, but just this um, space of how God can do amazing things regardless of what we're prepared for, or the stories that we know, that those stories are important. Like I love this season. This is definitely one of my favorite seasons of the year, um, because it doesn't change. Even as the lectionary letter changes, the
Hmm.
readings are similar, pretty much the
Right.
same all the time. You can't mess this up too much. I just, I don't know. One of the things I've wrestled with this series has been, I thought about finding ways, like different Christmas like traditions or things. Like there's a great story that the Cherokees tell about how they received the Christmas story from the Moravians.
Hmm.
And I thought about figuring, like, finding a way to fit that in. Because there's those stories too. Those are stories that remind us of how we got here with this, how the story transcends time, and then this story alone, like this portion of the story with Mary, is so key to that.
Hmm.
Because we'll talk about Joseph next week, but um, there's just something that we ground in this hope that um, that you can overcome things that are scary with God's
Hmm.
help.
Yeah. And it's that assurance that nothing's impossible for God, right? Like
Yeah.
it may seem like for us, but that's where faith comes in, that we have the faith to say, okay, what's before us, who's been there, and let's go, let's go.
Can we also
Um,
say that fear is not a spiritual failure?
yeah. So that's something I talked about a ton in the sense of fear is not only negative, right? Like fear keeps us safe and helps us create boundaries, but also brings us into those faithful moments to trust and to hold that tension of what we're sure of and what we're not sure of, and not just doing the things that are safe, right? Like fear keeps us safe, but it also pushes us forward to dig deep and search and have those faithful moments of trust or asking questions or seeking out the bigger thing that's bigger thing than us. For sure, talk a lot
Well,
about that.
and I do, and you know just as well as I do because you've been around it as
Hmm.
well. Uh, there is some that teach out there that
Yeah.
you can't, you can't, if you have fear, your faith is failing.
Hmm.
And um, I can't. No, sorry, wrong answer.
Yeah.
Try again, please, because that's not.
Well,
I just don't see how that. I don't
eh,
understand how that can be.
right.
How's that helpful?
Right.
Like, how does that?
And that's what Mary's story teaches us, right? The encouragement is you can't be afraid. It's don't be afraid, you got this. And it doesn't say that Mary's not afraid any longer, right? It just the text teaches us that Mary leans into that fear and trusts,
She does.
right? If Mary's no longer afraid after this, she doesn't go see Elizabeth, right? There's
Right.
no need to go and hang out with her cousin who knows what's going on and would understand. Mary clearly goes because of her fear to find comfort and solstice in this and somebody who knows. Otherwise, why does she go see Elizabeth, right? She hangs out with Joseph the rest of the time and we move on. No, you're exactly right. Is that fear doesn't go away. It's still there and still present and still very real. Uh, and a positive thing, right? Like without that, we don't have this beautiful story of her going and seeing Elizabeth and John jumping in her belly, and we don't have the Magnificat. We don't have, right? Like we don't have all of that if fear isn't at the foundation of it.
Well, and I definitely think that that is something that gets taught. You know, you can't have fear, like no
Right.
fear. Like, I mean, you and I grew up in a time where there were no fear T-shirts, and
I
you know,
was gonna
you,
say this is not a 1993 T-shirt.
yeah. I mean, you know, those no fear T-shirts were awesome, man.
Yeah, they were.
Uh,
Think about them often.
and I dread when people talk about like it. Nothing pains me more when I hear that people have said, "Well, because I had doubt, because I had fear, my
Right.
church taught me that like that's not acceptable or
Hmm.
that's not part of faith." When in reality, like there's a lot of stories where like you kind of would be afraid,
Yeah.
and you hear those words from God or an angel or whomever saying, "Don't be afraid, it's going to be okay. Like here's what's going to happen." And that and when we find peace in that, that there is fear. There are times to be afraid. Like I know, I mean, there have been times I know when I've been afraid. Like
Hmm.
I'm not, I hate to fail, but I know that it's a part of life.
It's part of it, right?
And it's what I learned from those experiences of failure. That like to me, that's where it helps. Like, hey, where did I see
Hmm.
God at in the midst of my fear? Oh, God was here. God was through here. Like, you know, those spaces.
Hmm.
And I think that that fear, like having a healthy dose of fear, having fear that is helpful, can lead us to find peace.
Hmm.
And so we know that peace is not a quick fix. And we can find peace in Emmanuel. And I don't know, like I love the Peace Sunday. It's always hard because it's like, you know, like we have this really like I call it a really high like view of peace where it's like no conflict, no nothing. I'm like, I don't know if it's that. like I think peace is a little bit different. I would
Hmm.
love to see no conflicts and stuff like that, but I also know that when you put two or three and more in a room, you're going to have
Hmm.
conflict. And and so I think that finding peace is not about finding the absence of something, but I think
Hmm.
it's finding the fullness of God that allows um that like God does a lot of great work in chaos. And that's where we can find peace, knowing that, hey, God's with me in this, like it's going to be okay.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And I think that's what it is, right? I think that's where we find peace in those moments of just absolute bananas, that it's gonna be okay. It's just a moment. Maybe a big one, maybe a small one, but we're not alone. That brings me great peace.
So Zach, as it's been a week since we last talked on the podcast, where have you seen God at work in your life?
Um, that's I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I know it's there. I
It's
know
okay, it's
God's been
Advent. You're
present.
allowed to have that
Well,
I
and
mean,
that's what it is, right? Like it is just one of those seasons that more so than always. Uh, haven't had a chance just to breathe since the last time we recorded this and asked
that's
this
true.
question. And so, um, yeah, I know God's out there and is present and is doing the things, and I look forward to that post-Advent Christmas Eve nap to realize all of those things.
Amen. Amen.
What about you?
Um, so one of the blessings that I get to do, about a quarter every quarter, once or twice a quarter, depending on scheduling and stuff, is I get to go over to one of our assisted living facilities, um, and lead worship over there. And today, as I'm recording this on Wednesday, um, I used the lectionary text from James 5 today, which is a different uh,
Mm,
it's an interesting read, like to think, why would you read James in the midst of Advent? But the first words are be patient.
hmm.
And we had this amazing worship experience. It was so good. It was just so much fun. I love going over there. It warms my soul to go over there. And it seems like it's always the Wednesday is my busiest Wednesday where I need to be 900 places, regardless of how I schedule it, how I block things out. I always feel like I'm going from one place to another, but walking into that space and saying those words, be patient.
Hmm.
I found myself in a sense of peace that yes, there is so much stuff going on, um, and I am, I am like you. I'm looking forward to that December 25th nap fest of opening presents, eating good food, and then sleeping the rest of the day. But there's still work to be done in that, and I don't know. I find peace in that. So,
Hmm.
listeners, we're grateful for you. Please like us, share us. Feel free to comment wherever you listen to this. We are definitely grateful for you. And so, for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
And like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.